Welcome back to another episode of Keeping It a Bean. Keeping It a Bean is a podcast that brings together conversation and culture all over a cup of coffee, or in tonight's case, because I'm not a psychopath, tea. If you are new to Keeping It a Bean, my name is Marquise, Marquise Davon, but never Mark, because some of y'all be trying it. Not for me, not today. Thank you very much. If you are returning, hello to niggas and niggas only. You already know what the vibes are now. If you want to support this here podcast, you can do so one of two ways or both ways, whichever way you prefer. You can do so non-monetarily, so you can do that by telling a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. If you see this podcast on YouTube, that means you're looking at these lovely faces here right now. You can make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell, so that way every Sunday at 10 a.m., you're going to be right there with us, cleaning and listening to the podcast in the background, or sitting down with your coffee and watching this podcast right along with me. However, if we are your Monday morning drive and your commute podcast that you like to listen to, make sure on Apple Podcasts or Spotify that you hit that rate and review. Do not be a hater. Give me 5 stars. Give a great review. Okay. If you see any clips happen on social media as well, a great way to support podcasts is to make sure that you share that clip, engage with that clip, like, and leave comments. Don't just leave emojis. Leave actual words so we can engage in the actual conversation, because that helps the algorithm pop up a little bit more. And I think that's it for the most part. And if you want to support me monetarily, you can do so in one of two ways. You can send me a direct link to my Cash App, so Marquise Davon, that's MarquiseDavon, or you can subscribe to patreon.com/Marquise Davon. There you can donate for as little as $2 a day, which is $24 a year. Some of y'all not even using your Planet Fitness accounts. I'm just saying. You can invest in this black man. And in Patreon, you're also going to get early releases to episodes and also discounts if you end up getting some of my merch. And by the time this episode comes out, then that means the Good Morning to Niggas and Niggas Only mugs are back. And you will know a few events that will be coming up in the new year as well. And so I'm super excited. If you become a patron and you are over the $5 mark, then you can get discounts on this podcast on any events that I throw myself. So I appreciate y'all. And it's good to see y'all. Hello, Patreon. Y'all are wonderful, Patreon. Other than that, I appreciate y'all. We're going to get into this episode. Great. Alrighty. So, I'm going to give that break, because I'd be like, dog, it just be rolling.
I'm like, is it scripted?
Nah, I said, niggas been doing this for 8 years. I said, I better have it down pack at this point. Huh?
You spit that all the time?
Yeah.
That's good, man.
I appreciate it.
I was like, this is why he be getting these endorsements and media spots.
This is my theater degree.
I see.
I said, that's the only time I use it. Okay, stop playing with it.
Transferable skills.
That's it. Trying to tell the people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, welcome back. I'm so excited for y'all to hop into this conversation. This person is a freaking ray of light. A1 day one smile. If you see him smile, you're probably smiling right back. Photographer, he is living life. He is the living embodiment of what it means to be present. At least anytime I get to interact with you, it is an awesome opportunity just to be like, oh, remember, just be present with life and enjoy what's here. And so, Greg, thank you so much for coming to the show. Welcome to the show, my guy.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Yes,
it's funny, you said every time I see you, you're present. Most times you see me, I'm searching for coffee or I'm working an event. And when I'm working these events doing photography, my attention is always on a bean.
No pun intended. Okay.
Always on a bean. So, but yeah, you got to be present when you're in those spaces.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's really dope though, because it's also just for a sign up for the audience. I see this guy in the most random places.
Random.
It's a coffee shop or a honey grow.
Or I'm driving past Temple somewhere.
Time. Yeah.
Every time, man.
Yeah, so it's good because it's just like random days where I'm just like, where's Greg about to pop out back?
This is the first time it was a planned meeting.
Yeah.
And so thank you for having me here today. I appreciate it. I've been listening to some of the clips. Y'all be cracking me up with some of the stuff y'all be saying.
It'd be nonsensical.
So I appreciate just being here and you having me here.
Nah, dog, you're somebody I've been like waiting to have on the show for a long time. I think it's been a few months, almost a year now, that I've just been like, yeah, I can't wait to have Greg on and just like get to just pick your brain, but also allow the audience to get introduced to like who you are as a person. Because I'm just like, everybody needs to meet Greg in their life.
Hey, folks.
That's Greg. And so before we even get into everything real quick, who are you?
Who am I? It's funny. I'm reading, I just finished Will, and he's like throughout the whole book still trying to figure out who he is, right? So I'm ever evolving, but at this stage today, who I'm finding out I am an educator, community advocate, photographer, who's just constantly trying to learn more about the history that our schooling system and our society tries not to let us know about, right? So specifically like my Black history throughout the diaspora, traveling. I want to learn about myself through travels. I want to learn about myself through experiences. And when I learn things, I want to bring them to my friends, the community, folks around me, whether it's a casual conversation, a photography exhibit, a portrait session. What I learn in my personal life, I want you to learn that and experience that as well. I'm from Philly, West Philadelphia, born and raised.
Come on now.
As the song goes, on the playground is where I spend all that jazz, all right? But that's who I am.
Yo, that's a wonderful introduction.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, no, because he really be embodying all of that shit. I ain't gonna hold. Okay, you would swear, right? Jump right into it. Yeah, dog. And I'm excited because some of the stuff you were even alluding to is some stuff I would really want to get into with this episode, especially around like your learnings through travel and a lot of like how you found yourself through travel as well, which I'm excited to get into. But before that, we're going to do a fun little icebreaker. We call this the Keeping It a Bean segment. Keeping It a Bean, for those of you that don't know, is a segment that we give our hottest take. You keep it a bean, you keep it 100, whatever you want to say. Personal, political, pop culture, whatever is on your mind, it's your time to give that hot take. So please, Greg, as the guest, what are you keeping it a bean about today?
I'm going to keep it being about one thing that's been on my mind for a while. The greatest story ever told in the history of man is One Piece. And I need y'all to stop being lazy just because there's 1,000+ episodes.
That's so many episodes.
And get on your ass and watch this show because you are missing out on the greatest story ever told. And I thought I was by myself when I was saying this to people randomly on the streets.
No,
I'll tell anybody. All right? Because if you're into One Piece, you are an evangelist for the One Piece. I thought I was the only person that was like this until I watched the Samuel L. Jackson interview, and they asked him a question about his favorite book or favorite movie, and he said the exact same thing. The greatest story ever told is One Piece. So get on it, folks.
What is it?
One Piece, the greatest story ever told, is an anime that's been out for at least 23 years. Yeah. And it's a story about, of course, any anime, friendship, but it's an allegory for so much stuff in our society today. Yeah. So it's about a pirate, and in his world, most pirates are bad, but this is a pirate who, he just wants to become the greatest pirate ever, the Pirate King. So you see him making friends, getting a crew, but getting stronger. And for this thing to come out almost 23 years ago and still running as a top selling manga, anime, top ratings every single week. It's amazing. Some fans have died waiting to see how this thing ends. We got about 5 years left, y'all.
It's crazy.
Catch up.
It's dedication. It is dedication that I do not have.
Well, folks say, Greg, what did you do during COVID? I watched One Piece, okay? I started from episode 1, and by the end of COVID, I was caught up.
Because I fell off of One Piece as a kid. So, like, I was there. I was with it. It was literally, like, Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, Bo, Zatch Bell.
All of that. All of
it. Straight through. Toonami into Adult Swim. Good time. But I don't know when it was, but I was just like, oh, I do not got it for One Piece anymore. I fell off. And Zoro, he's not Zoro. Who's the chef? Sanji. That was my guy.
Sanji's good. Sanji's a creep, but he's a good character. I will say this. And we'll get into like the whole emotions and therapy thing. Yeah. For a long time, I processed my emotions through television. All right.
Oh, that's a good start. I did the same thing.
I didn't know how to tell you how I was feeling, but when I saw somebody going through pain on this anime, man, people saw me crying, people saw me laughing, people saw me happy. The range of emotions this series took me through was crazy. And again, I thought it was just me by myself. Yeah. But if you go online, you see people cry at the same points I cried at. Grown men, grown women crying for what we will call an anime. Some people will call a cartoon.
Yes.
Check it out.
I agree. That's how I was for Fullmetal Alchemist, though. Much more concise story, but
well, you know,
that's a
23 years and running. It's not.
Yeah. Right? No. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
One Piece is a very concise anime. It tells a beautiful story through and through. No, that was a good hot take, though. I ain't mad at that.
Let people listen. When I post anything about anime, people say, "You watch anime?" Yes. Why can't I watch anime? Why is it a shocker?
And I really feel like there's like a cutoff too, because as I was coming up, and granted, it's not that far of a difference. But we are the other side of millennial. That's when anime started becoming cool. Now Gen Z got the fullness of it, of just like, oh, it's cool to be a nerd. It's cool to watch anime and stuff like that. But I remember because I was just like, and it still happens from time to time, and that's how I can always tell like somebody's age. Yeah. Because I'm just like, oh, you didn't know that watching anime was cool. We don't have to do this in secret anymore.
Oh my god!
And I'm sitting there.
It was a bad thing growing up, yo.
Dog. I said, oh, you ain't catching me getting bullied.
Like you watching porn or something like that. You know what I mean?
Like, what are you? Everybody's secretly watching it. Okay, like relax. No, I appreciate that though. Thank you for that. That's a good hot take.
Let the world know. Get your emotional release through One Piece.
Oh.
Wow.
Dang, that's the tagline.
Wow.
I like that.
I like that.
I'll make that t-shirt.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't know about how trademark stuff works, but
we gotta wait to release this before I trademark it. All right, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. Somebody might take the idea. It's fine. It's fine. And if I'm gonna keep it a bean, it's my little Hotep theory. I'm not gonna hold. Now that the CEO shooter did what he did, I think the world in 2 years is going to move into much more class consciousness because the amount of people who have been dicked over by insurance and the collective release and joy and laughter that people let out, that public response should let CEOs of these predatory businesses know exactly how people feel about the 1%. That is my theory, but I'm like with Trump and presidency now, people are also going to realize like life is going to become marginally harder. And so everybody's going to be like, oh, we're all poor. Everybody's tired of being poor. Most people are a paycheck away from being broke. Once they realize that, the amount of people who are going to start revolting against government, it's going to be insane. But I think this is the first time that we're going to see class consciousness be a conversation, because even like the New York Times, the Washington Post, they're just like, what is wrong with society that we're celebrating somebody's death and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dog, I'm not going to hold. No one cares, because I said, think around all the other people he dicked over, or at least the organization dicked over.
And he was the representative of it.
And he was the CEO.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. So that's my little Hotep hot take. But I do think there is something to say around the collective memification of this event and how people are overall reacting.
Well, when was the last time that something bad societally happened and everyone was making a joke about it? It wasn't too far ago.
That's not COVID?
It wasn't COVID. It was like last year sometime.
Oh, Trump getting shot.
Yes, it was this year.
That in the air.
Another thing. Yeah, man.
Right.
So there it goes right there. That was the first step.
Yeah.
This is it. It's just getting better. I never wish that anybody.
We do not condone violence. I'm non-violent with those who are non-violent with me. Okay. My views are my own. They are not Greg's.
Not mine.
Okay.
We don't need you to go out and get a 3D printer, folks. All right. But you can express your views, right?
Yes.
In a conscious way, like we're doing on this podcast.
Exactly.
Right,
okay. A dialogue to push the culture. We out here. All right. So that's our Keeping It a Bean segment. Let us know how you feel about One Piece being your emotional release, or is the CEO killer the inciting incident for clash consciousness to be a front runner in the conversation in the next couple of years?
And third, Keep It a Bean in his comments, if you sent, what was his name again?
What's his name?
The shooter.
Oh, Luigi.
If you sent Luigi a DM or anything like that saying, baby, I'm here for you, let us know, because some of y'all got some really sick thoughts.
He's a man of the people. He's a man of the people. We didn't condemn Robin Hood. I'm just saying, okay? They said, if that rich Ivy League child was this angry to do this, what do you think poor people feel? And he was the most privileged of them all.
Do you think that's why he did it?
That because he has that. No, niggas ain't dumb enough to do that. It's January 6th all over again. To be able to roll up on a CEO like that and there be no consequences and nobody question anything is crazy.
Because of his privilege of
Whiteness?
No, not whiteness. Wealth.
Wealth?
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Like-
do you think someone of a different race could have also done that?
No.
So you think it's?
I think the
white
reaction would be extremely different. I would say that.
Interesting.
It can still get done. I think the public reaction would look differently.
How do you think it would look?
I think the way that the media is reacting is going to paint it like if it was a black person to do that, I think the media reaction would absolutely paint it out to just be like, oh, there's militant black people, this, that, and the third. And like, they'll put more policies around guns. And then even like Eric Adams, he's already started saying like, this is why we need to abolish masks and all this other stuff. I do actually think the way that they talk around it could be like, this is a domestic terrorism event. This isn't just like an offshoot. So the white boy has the ability to just be a singular event and not necessarily a representation of everybody else.
Do you think your idea of now the class thing is because he's a white guy? Do you think your idea that how you were just saying, well, now people realize that it's a class thing, you think you can only have that idea because he's white? Do you think if he was a black guy or like
They would have called it a race thing.
No, would you have said that now they would see it as a class thing?
I think if the public reaction was the same, so if the majority of people are still reacting and saying like this was like they're making jokes of it, they're making light of it, they're just also in support of this man, then we can still name it as a class thing. I think if it were to say a black person to a white CEO, there would be the added layer of race, which would divorce some people from the conversation. So yes, him being white does make it more palatable to talk around it being a class issue.
So in your idea, it had to be a white person to do this.
Yes.
Did it have to be a white male to do it?
Yes.
Interesting.
Because women are too hysterical. Black people would be too emotional. People of color would be too emotional. Another white person doing it. I said, look at this white or white crime, and we're not going to talk about it? But if you really look... Huh? It'd be immigrants, right? And so this was just hyping up the push against civil rights that's already, the attack on civil rights that's already happening. But white people can't deny the fact that like another white person did something like this, and it's not like it was a poor white person. This is a white person with access who was in an Ivy League school who had privilege that he had all the protections not to do anything. And so even seeing this kind of public reaction, I'm like, oh, this allows so many more people to identify with it because overall, a majority of Americans have been dicked over by medical insurance and are going into medical debt. That everybody can relate to that piece. Now, we have to add the nuance of like how race can play a role into this because race and class are inextricably linked. However, in this moment, I do believe that it will become an overall class conversation. Yeah.
I agree.
That's a good point.
Cool. Sometimes I be thinking.
I mean,
That bean sprouted right there.
No, good question though. No, I appreciate that push because I think it's valid because I think that's the space we're gonna have to get into a lot more, especially as we think around like the social and political landscape of where we're headed. To be honest, so appreciate you.
no problem.
Yeah,
Be Mike, man.
be Mike. That's why it's there. That's why it's there. Come on, stop playing with him. All right. So, but besides that, we're gonna like steep into the conversation.
Heavy topic. But besides that, go ahead.
Yeah, easy transition.
Let's sidestep
Y'all
that.
didn't even peep. I said we're gonna steep into the conversation. You peep because you steep your tea.
I missed that. I missed that.
Come
My
on,
bad,
you gotta
my
steep
bad.
your tea because it marinates longer, so the conversation.
I get that, I get that.
Yeah. Okay. Segments. Yeah. No, but seriously, like in a space of us being able to talk around one piece and this emotional release, but then also a little bit more around like a social political issue. Something that I find really intriguing about you is that you capture the world and you allow people into your world through photography. And that's something like you're really big about. Yeah. And so everywhere you go, there's going to be a different political landscape. There's a different social landscape and contract, but also how people experience the world may be different. And you're capturing these raw emotions, right? And you see how I put that all together. Okay, stop playing with them. Stop playing. Niggas know what they're doing. But in reality, that's something I appreciate every time I look at your photography. Because I'm just like, oh, you're capturing moments that are so authentic. You're capturing moments that feel like if you were not there, you would never be able to replicate that moment in that time. And so I want to start off and take it back before we get into like more of like what you learn about yourself. But what inspires you to start photography?
learning more about myself. That
Yeah.
was literally it. So I always wanted to capture what I see about the world, right? But what is that medium for me to do that?
Right.
And so I literally journaled. Like there's a journal that I still have till this day. And in there, I'm writing like that, what I just said to you. I'm going to capture about the world, what I see about the world. I think photography is the medium of that. I don't have a camera, but one day, you know, I'll grab one and just see what I can capture.
Yeah.
Fast forward 3 years later, I'm part of this. One other aspect of me is some farming, gardening, you know. And so I'm part of this program that really called to me because it was all about growing seeds.
Yeah.
So that we can, it was a seed keeper fellowship. Growing seeds because seeds keep the history of our ancestors, right?
Oh,
so
fire.
the goal was to grow seeds
That's really good.
of your ancestral history. So we had to do research about our family, figure out where they're from down south. If we had the means to figure out our heritage from where we're from Africa, right? Look into that. And then our mentor actually found the seeds that we were like most associated with, right? Our families. So through this program, I grew okra, I grew peanuts, which didn't know you can grow peanuts in Philadelphia, right? In North Philly, grew some peanuts. And I can't recall the third. Oh, a Bambara groundnut. I grew a Bambara groundnut. So those are the three things that I grew, right? And through this process,
never heard of that last one.
That's definitely West Africa,
Got
right?
it. Yep.
That's definitely West Africa. It was the thing they were using before peanuts were introduced to the continent, right? So, but yeah, so as I'm doing this project, there are 8 other people in the program, and I'm just on my cell phone capturing pictures, taking pictures. And they're looking at the photos like, yo, this is good. Everything was done on my iPhone.
Yeah.
They're like, this is dope. Like, you should really think about, you know, getting a camera and really going hard about this. Fast forward a few months later, after that, just like didn't cultivate anything. I just opened up my journal, and I think the day was December 21st was when I opened up my journal. But I opened it up 3 years prior. Yeah. And I was like, yo, I opened my journal up to December 21st. What was I writing about back then? Yeah. I want a camera to document the stories and ... I was like, this is crazy. Yeah. Hopped in my car, went to Best Buy in Jersey, grabbed a camera, limited research. I'm like, I'm gonna start capturing these stories like I said. Yeah. Because like too much is happening for this to make sense in my life right now. So that's really like how it started. I just randomly went out and grabbed the camera because the callback 3 years prior to the exact same day. When I tell you God be working, God be working, man.
No, that's straight fire though, because I love it, because that's also like a practice I do. Is just like, for me, I like to reflect on the week in my journal, just to kind of see like, are there any like through lines throughout the week? Is there something that I'm like repeating a lot of the time? But for you to be able to go like 3 years back and just open up on a random day and you're just like, boom, camera. Oh, this is something, the seeds were already planted for you by people just saying like, oh, you are already good at this. Yeah. Like, you know how to capture moments, right? And I love that because, one, you took faith and you just took the leap, is what I'm hearing. But not only that, you were just like, how do I cultivate this even though I don't know how to do this all the way? You just know you had a natural talent.
Just grabbed it, hopped on YouTube, you know, like YouTube. There's so many classes on YouTube for you right now for this stuff, but you definitely got to put the time in, right? You got to put the time in, but just moving more so into, because originally my goal was to just take photos of, not just, but my goal was to take photos of Black farmers, right? And ask them why they're growing the seeds they're growing, if there's any connection to that seed, that plant that you're growing. And I was out at a restaurant. I just had my camera out with me one day. And somebody said, you're a photographer? I'm like, no. And he said, why do you have a camera? My friend was like, he is a photographer. What do you need? And from there, that was my first book session right there.
First book session.
Now, as I said, I am not a photographer.
This is interesting because I'm just like, what is... Because somebody else, I was recently watching the New York Times thing, and Alex Cooper was just like, I'm not a journalist, I'm not this, I'm just Alex. What was your aversion to like claiming that you were a photographer?
I just take pictures of farms and gardens. I don't do photo shoots. That's mentally in my head. But what I told the guy was, oh, I just have a camera. Like, I'm not a photographer. His thought is, why do you have a camera then? You know, like, you are a photographer. So
I love that. Daniel?
No, I was gonna say it's the same thing as how people are like, are you a musician? Do you play the guitar? And they're like, until you say it,
it doesn't feel real.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's how I felt like this past weekend. I was on a panel for entrepreneurs, Black entrepreneurs, and like, what does it look like with a Trump presidency and is entrepreneurship still the way to go? But it was interesting because when I was invited onto the panel, I was like, I don't necessarily see myself as no entrepreneur. That's why I had to ask you the question, like, because I'm sitting there, I'm just like, I'm a creative, but I'm like, I don't know about like entrepreneur, but good.
The term creative, none of that made sense to me back then.
Yeah.
Like my goal, I'm about community, I'm about education, informal education. All right, so that's
there we go.
Yeah. Informal education is what I do.
Yeah.
And that, as you were talking about what you see in my photos, that carries through my photography practice to this day.
Yeah.
Right? Informal education. Like I'm not the person that's going to be in the classroom and talking to you and lecturing you, but you're going to learn through these experiences that I put before you and through the gallery, the show, and asking questions about what this is.
Yeah.
Informal teaching,
Yeah,
I got
teaching.
Yeah, it is teaching.
Yes, like that's, if you didn't hear off that, like we're saying that's teaching, right? Like, thank you for adding that. Like that's like naming that piece is important because I'm just like, some of my best learning happened when I studied abroad, and it was the experiential piece because I'm just like, oh, I have to be able to navigate the world that. They're like, they speak English, but they're gonna be like, no, I speak Czech before I speak to you. But like, I'm speaking my native tongue. You better learn what I do, right? And so I think it's fascinating because that's still that hands-on experience. It doesn't always have to be formal in the sense of just like, I'm going to teach you what a metaphor is and how to put it into a sentence, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
But there is something of value also to say, here's some stuff that feels formal, quote unquote, versus what you're saying is informal, but learning is happening. That development is happening because that can also help them apply the skills that they're learning.
Facts.
Right? Like you're showing them the world.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, like world history, cool. Now let's actually experience the world.
Yeah,
right. And you get to do that by showing your photography.
Yeah, it's a beautiful experience and opportunity that I have.
Yeah.
Anytime someone comments, I love when people say, "Oh, this is so vibrant." But my favorite comment is, "I didn't know about this."
Yeah.
And so education at its core.
And I love it because that's something that you did with your reflections of Cuba. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Cuba.
Yeah. And so I know you had your opening as well. And so people were able to go and experience the world that you experienced because you were able to capture so many moments.
Yeah.
So one, you got excited about Cuba. So like talk around that experience and then we'll get into like the photography and what it meant to document those moments.
So Cuba's a beautiful space, right? And there's a lot of different viewpoints on Cuba and what it is. But when you really talk to the people, they are beautiful, kind, intelligent. They have worldviews that you just can't assume that someone doesn't have because they're in a country that lacks, right? So let's just talk about the food, right?
Because you're a foodie.
Oh,
this man is a foodie through and through.
Listen, I had lobster every day. All right. How many ways? I had lobster in my pasta. I had lobster in my eggs. I had lobster on my burger.
Casserole.
Exactly right. Feeling like Forrest Gump.
Right.
But yeah, man. Fried, that, steamed, boiled, broiled, all that. But yeah, the food was amazing. I mentioned my practice as photography when it comes to the farms. The farming and the reason the people farm, it's so much more than what we get over here, right? So we're on one farm and the farmer's talking about the food that he has, but then he talked about why he grows it. Yeah. Because in Cuba, there is, due to the embargo, they don't have all the medicine opportunities that we have. So they're literally growing food for bodily ailments and to heal the body. The farmer's pointing at certain fruits. We're growing that to help people with their eyes. We grow that to help with the kidney. We grow that to help if you have diabetes. And so on certain farms, they're selling the produce, of course, but they're also giving it away to certain populations. So if you are, like, they were giving the food away to hospitals, they're giving the food away to daycare centers and like primary grades. So things like that were so amazing to hear how these farmers are working in this space.
Because there's also like intention, but that's also deeply rooted community as well.
Yes.
Because I'm just like, I think, especially in America, it's like move, produce, but people don't understand the why of what they're doing, or they're disconnected to like what it was intended to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I think around like indigenous folks used every single piece of the animal. They did not allow it to go to waste, but they understood because they honored it, but they understood where it was going. And same, go ahead.
understanding where it's going, but also like the need out of necessity, right? So because of what they lack, like they understand the importance of it. You know, so
you appreciate more.
When I talk to someone, and I hope I can get this right, when I talk to someone, so because of the way that Cuba is set up in a communist country, like people are given bread, you know, and they're given certain food items. Sometimes you have to buy them. One of the people I spoke with, and this hit home to me so much, as we're eating at a restaurant, she goes, with my family, we can get, with what we get paid by the government, we can get she said eggs, pineapple, mango, bag of rice, and something else. I was like, okay, so you have to make all that stretch for a month off of like what's your monthly wages? She said, no, we have to choose one of those things off of the list that I just said to you. And I couldn't fathom what she just said to me in that moment. And this is a person who is going to be who's flown around the world, meeting with other nations, trying to learn from those nations to bring back to her own nation. And she's talking about how their family still has to like survive in this family. So what's so important is they understand the need of this food, you know, and the importance of it.
Yeah. Oh, that's dope, dog. Thank you for sharing that experience. Because how did that? I know you said it hit for home, but how did that change like your view, especially like experiencing Cuba, experiencing the people, and then coming back?
I try my hardest not to waste food. You know what I mean? I'm eating every drop on that plate. All right, every grain of rice is gone. All right, because it's more respect. But I also look at like working with students that I work with, and I know school food gets a bad rep, right? But when students are talking about the food, and I just see them wasting the food and throwing it away,
I don't want no freebies.
They definitely don't want the freebies, right? Yeah. But I let them know, like
freebies don't be that good.
I've seen some people who, you know, have to do with much less, and they would take that freebie that you got, and they will make a meal out of it.
Yeah, no, that's real, because I think there's a detachment that comes away from it, and even like the intention of people being able to eat for free. And I remember like I would go to school to get breakfast, and we would have lunch, and then I would stay in the after school spot like the Olivet's Boys and Girls Club, because that was where my third hot meal was coming from, essentially. Exactly. And so being able to grow and appreciate that, but it made me reflect even as I got older of just like, wow, I was able to like work to a space where I don't need to feel dependent upon these other spaces. And so I'm still in a space of gratitude, and also recognizing like that hasn't shifted for for a critical mass of people either. And so it still always like reminds me of just like the importance of these third spaces, the importance of just being grateful for having things and being able to like work towards something too. Yeah, which I think is like interesting, because now I'm curious around how do you feel like you were able to capture those moments or capture that story when you got to do your opening?
Yeah, so I did the show with my good friend Linda. Like, you might have to have Linda on here one day.
Tell me twice. Hey, Linda.
So me and Linda met when we were, somebody just said, I think y'all two need to meet. You like Cuba. She just discovered her Cuban heritage. Oh, wow. You just got back from there. Our stories connected so much. She had a show going on. Yeah. And at this like coffee meeting, she said, all right, I got space for you to include 10 photos into my Cuba exhibit. Yeah. And you can choose whatever you want. I'm not going to, I'm not going to sanction what you put up there, but just put up whatever you want. And I wanted to tell the story of, with my exhibit, of the vibrancy of the country, the resiliency of the country, but also the trip that I was on was specifically to support the Afro-Cuban people. Yeah. If you want to go on this trip, it's with a group called Regla Soul, and they are amazing. We can talk about Regla Soul for days, how amazing they are. But so back to your point, I wanted to share some of the things that they showed us around the Afro-Cuban culture. So I mentioned that there's a lack of medicine, right, due to the embargo. On this trip, they made sure to take us to see an Osiris, who is a healer for the people, right? Yeah. Like in the religions that they practice, they're a healer. And when we spoke to this Osiris, it was amazing. We're in this small room, and on his wall, there are a bunch of packets. And he said, This side of the wall are the healing plants and remedies for the body, and this side of the wall is for the spirit.
Yeah.
And he said, I had to go through a lot of training to understand the importance of these two things and how they coexist in the world, and how they help the body or could harm the body.
Yeah.
He said, I won't give you either of these things unless you come with a prescription from a babalao for the spirit,
Yeah.
or a doctor for the body.
Yeah.
And just hearing how like he practiced to this degree in his religion, his faith, it was amazing. He said, sometimes I have a line out the door that I can't like see people for the whole day because there's so many doctors prescribing what I give to the people.
Wow.
So that was something I wanted to definitely share. I shared some of those farms that I mentioned that are growing food for the healing of the body. And then just the beautiful people. They are amazing, beautiful people.
Yeah. That is dope, dog. I think that's one of the beautiful things about like photographers is like the ability to capture moments, but like that is your eye specifically. You can't recreate what you just did. And
Right Eye Visuals, by the way.
Okay.
Right Eye Visuals, LLC.
Stop playing with him. Stop playing with him, because I saw when that page launched. I said, let's go. Okay. Yes, because you have the right eye for that moment and time and everything. And so, one, thank you for sharing that story. And I think as we begin to land this plane, what was that reflection like for you? Because it's something different when you want to give it to the world and like, here's the intention behind this curated 10 pieces that I want to show you. But what was the transformative piece for you?
We as Black people in this diaspora are more connected than you think, right? So I'm going to tell two stories. There's one person in my exhibit, and I can't remember his name, but he said that they called me crazy. And they called him crazy because he took a city space area and told the government he was going to make an edible forest. And lo and behold, a few years later, there's an edible forest in Cuba because of this man who they call crazy. You can walk into the forest, you can grab mangoes, we're eating lunch. He said, do y'all want dessert? Here, reaches up to in the sky, gives us some fruit. Like, this is beautiful. But when my uncle got to the exhibit, he said, why does this man look like me, Greg? And I was like, oh, snap. I didn't even realize it. He looked just like my uncle. He looked just like my uncle. And so we are more connected than you would think. And the story that I want to talk about really is not just about this Cuba experience, but it's about the experience, my travels across the diaspora. Yeah. Because another one of my favorite places was Colombia. And I went to the Palenque in Colombia, and I met an artist, Afro-Nato, right? And he's a rap artist. You talk to him, and like a lot of people go to Palenque in Colombia to visit Afro-Nato in a small region that still still practices their African dialect, all right? And so I heard he was a rapper. I was like, boom, that's dope. We connected. He's a good guy, right? Fast forward to me going to Cuba a year later, and the people I'm on a trip with are talking about how they're rapping. And I'm like, do you know Afro-Nato? He was like, in Colombia? That's mi amigo. I was like, what? Like, so we are more connected than you think, you know? And I just want all the people out there to know that travel these lands that our people have touched, our people have been born in. We might speak a different language, but there is more connection between the culture, the food, the music, the dance styles, the instruments that we use, the stories that we tell, and of course the food that we eat. So definitely travel, experience that opportunity. I promise you, just like myself, you will learn more about yourself.
Doug, I appreciate you.
Appreciate you for having me, man.
Yo.
Yes, sir.
No, seriously, like this conversation was an awesome reflection of, one, it's the importance of traveling, but also honoring tradition that sometimes gets lost a lot of the time, and taking those talents and realizing like those things that you're passionate about, cultivate that, plant that seed, whatever you want, but like have that moment to know like what is yours and how do you continue to allow that to grow and blossom. And I think you do that so much. Like when I tell you your energy radiates as you told the story, your energy radiates of you as a person, like that is so dope to see, and it's dope to witness. So it's cool to see like you as a person. Your photography is simply just an extension of who you are. So thank you for sharing your light with the people on my show. Thank you for coming in here. Thank you for telling your story and being honest. Before we get out of here, where can the people find you?
Yeah, so a couple ways. two Instagram accounts, right?
Yes,
The
you do.
personal's just_G Wright. And my photography page is Right Eye Visuals. All right. And you can see all my stuff at righteyevisuals.com. Come chat. I would love to have a conversation about what we just talked about on this podcast with Keith and keeping it a bean. My travels, my food, the therapeutic photography sessions that I try to post,
Yes.
and more along that nature. All right. But it's been great being here. Thank you for having me, Keith.
Yeah, man. It won't be the first. It won't be the last time. Okay?
Word.
Come on now. Always welcome back. A friend of the pod. I appreciate you. Other than that, y'all, you already know I will make sure to leave all of his information in the description box below. I appreciate y'all tuning in for another episode of Keeping It a Bean. It's your boy Keith. This is Greg. Peace.
Peace.